Hey guys, welcome back to Motorcycle Maintenance Channel. On this episode, we're doing an episode of Between the Apex to discuss the halftime Moto GP seasonal finale, or beginning, maybe looking at the second half.
This isn't the official summer break, is it? It just worked out this way because they canceled the track? Because this is a long span.
I think it is the official summer break. We're directly at half races.
Isn't there another break coming up after this race?
I think it's 2 races, then the break.
Yeah.
Oh, so we're not even at halftime yet?
We have what? Assen and Saxon Ring coming up?
And then 10 more races after that?
Yep.
Something like that. But yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was confused.
Oh,
Yeah, this has been a 4-week break. It feels like it's a summer break, but we're going to get 2 races and then right back off again.
So Pecco could still potentially lead the half.
There's a chance.
I have no doubt he will.
Well, he does well at Assen, so he should do well this weekend.
But I guess that's off topic. Let's talk about number one. Who's first right now in the standings with 171 points?
Martin.
The Martinator.
What do you guys think? What's he doing and where's he going?
I think he's doing awesome this year. I think he's matured a lot. He's mellowed out. His mind seems like it's a lot better, and he's on point. You know, normally you would see him if he got ahead, he would get flustered and he would fumble it. And now it seems like he's sticking with it. He may fumble, but he regroups and he comes back. And I'm totally surprised that Ducati didn't go with him. I thought he did everything you could possibly want to get that position.
I think I think you hit the nail right on the head there.
Yeah, he definitely earns that seat more than anyone else, I feel like. And he's definitely shown signs of maturity this year. He's shown really good consistency, ways to bounce back. Even his interviews, when he doesn't do well, he talks about trying to figure out what went wrong, make the adjustments. And he's also done something different this season than he's done in the past, where they've made adjustments to his bike per track. Mm-hmm. So that's something that he's evolving still.
Just recently in
Magellan. Yeah, like he's getting more involved with the technical side, whereas he used to not. He'd just get on a bike and go and hope you had it set up for him. Now he's actually paying attention.
Yeah, so now he's definitely becoming more detail-oriented, and that's the next step to becoming the champion, I feel like. So pretty happy about his performance so far.
What are you thinking, Tim?
I'm hoping this isn't another deja vu year. You know, we've had title swings between he and Pecco before, and seems like there's always those momentum swings. So he was out of the gate hot and heavy. Who knows? Maybe Pecco's going to swing back and, like you said, Speed, even be leading by the halfway point. I hope not. I think I agree with both of you. Martin is in much better shape this year, much older, much wiser. Probably has, at least up until this point, as good a support as he's going to get from the factory. But now, who knows? Promises made might not be promises kept.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, he definitely won me over. At first, I was not a Martin fan. I thought he was cocky and he had a chip on his shoulder.
I agree with that.
After seeing him at Coda wreck and you know, throw his body at it and get back up there, I saw his frustration. I saw his humanity. And I feel like he's really, he has, like you said, he's matured. He matured and he's ready to give it his all. And I think what Ducati did was wrong. I think going to Marquez to get sponsors instead of staying with Jorge, a young up and coming rider, that was a bad move. I think it's ultimately going to be better for Pecco, because who's going to be the least headache for Pecco? Martin or Marquez? You know,
well,
if I was Pecco,
I'm going to say Marquez on that one.
You think so?
Yes.
I don't think so. I think Martin was going to be worrisome for him.
Well, I'll tell you what, I kind of disagree with a little bit of what you said with Martin. I don't think he was cocky. I think he was honest. I think one of the things I like about him is his humble beginnings and how he had to live with the Espargaros and hasn't had a silver spoon in his mouth on the way up. He's been overlooked a number of times. I thought when he was most critical was when Beast actually had a couple more wins that year. It was close. That's when he really kind of got that first bitter taste in his mouth with Ducati. So I've never really felt he has been more cocky than any of the other riders. These guys all have to have extreme ego, extreme confidence to be where they're at, right? So I never saw him that way to start with. I actually think other people perceive him that way, but I think it's just his brutal honesty. So
Yeah, I perceive him that way based on his interviews and how he composed himself in that. But even now, he's that hard edge that he had, his brutal honesty is softening a little bit, and maybe it's his PR team behind him, but it's working.
And I try to have respect for the fact that he comes from humble backgrounds. When a lot of these guys, you have to have money to get where they are, and he didn't. And so last year, whenever he would kind of lash out with things, I thought, well, you know what? He's one of the few people that's fighting from the ground up to get where he is. And this year, I feel like he completely crossed over that hill, and now he feels like he's on the level of every other rider in maturity, and he feels like he belongs there.
absolutely, absolutely. And he is my pick. He's the one I want to win the title now because of many political issues. Usually I'm a bit more Team Italy, but I absolutely want to see number 89 win the title this year.
I wouldn't be upset, but I'm still a Pecco fan, so I'm gonna have to pull for Pecco on that one.
I always appreciate Pecco's ability to get knocked down and stay super chill the entire time. He doesn't get flustered. He just goes, well, that was that one. We'll regroup for the next one. And then he's able to pick it back up again and go, which is phenomenal.
Because
He's a Zen master, and
he's a genius.
number 2 on our list here. So.
He even has a calming effect on his team in the box. I think I only heard about him throwing his toys out of his pram in the box one time. Normally, he's actually calming down the team. And look who he's got in there to calm down, right? Tardozzi.
Oh, I love that guy.
Oh yeah, the shows that he gives us are great. You can tell he's really feeling it. You know what I mean? He's personifying, I think, what we all.
I
feel.
like when they have the heart monitor on him because his heart rate is going crazy.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that Pecco's just going to come back and crush everyone this second half.
Yeah.
That's what he did last season. I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm feeling it too.
But again, I think Martin, like everybody said, he's matured. I think he's going to be there. I think we got a real horse race.
Yeah, like I really want Martin to be in there to fight for the entertainment value, and part of me kind of wants him to stick it up to Ducati for screwing him over like that. I feel, but Pecco gets this look in his eye, and when he puts his head down and he does his thing, he's in
his homework.
He's in a different world. That guy's a genius. First off, like I keep saying it, like
yeah, you do keep saying it, and I do believe that guy's mental. But there's something. Don't you think that Martin has more raw talent than Pecco does? I mean, he's not a numbers guy. He's an all-feeling guy. He gets out there and just goes.
He rides with his gut. He rides with his gut. But I don't know if that translates into more talent.
He's starting to figure it out, though, Martin, with that aspect, because he's looking at the analytics and how the bike performs per track, so making those adjustments. So he's making an evolution change. But yes, Martin is raw talent when it comes to bikes. Like his riding ability, amazing. But out of just pure analytical genius mindset and studying and looking at the competition, Pecco is in a different league than everybody else.
Agreed.
And his mental strength is what's going to hold him up against Marquez when he's his teammate.
He's going to need it. But agreed, yeah, he's obviously the best Ducati pilot we've had. He's the best of this decade. He's a 2-time world champion. You don't get there without the skill and the talent, but it also, requires the stars to align. World championships aren't ever just based on the raw skill and raw talent, right? So a lot of other guys have had to knock a real good attempt on that same machinery. Maybe not in the same color, but that same machinery.
You say that, though. The stars to align.
His contemporaries, Beast, Martin, they're all on pretty much the same machine. So he is the best right now, but winning 3 in a row, that's rarely done. So just the historical odds are kind of against him this season as well. So there's always that kind of boogeyman lurking.
Plus with the number 1 plate. I mean, I liken that akin to Babe Ruth stepping on, there and calling his shot. He's calling a home run. He's putting that number 1 out there, and he's riding with that pressure. And he's showing he can.
He does great with pressure in general. Mm-hmm. That's one of his attributes. Hey, Tim, I was going to ask, do you know of any satellite team that's won the world championship?
Well, technically, I think Eddie Lawson did in '89. even though he was in Rothman's colors. It was not the factory team that Wayne Gardner was on. He was in a separate outfit run by Irv Kenemoto, and they ran the
Rossi in
factory
2001?
colors.
So we have
Lost-
to go back almost 30 years for a
Yeah,
satellite
yeah.
team.
I can't think of a satellite.
Rossi did it on a satellite Honda, didn't he?
No,
I mean, it was
well,
satellite in name.
was that the factory? Yeah, I guess
In
so. Was
2000,
Repsol?
No, he wasn't on a
2001. He
Repsol.
was on the Nostro Azzurro, so maybe that was considered a satellite team, but it was a factory bike. I know he was on full factory machinery that year in 2001.
Well, could you say Jorge Martin is on a satellite bike if he wins, if he's getting factory support?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would too.
Well, then I would say Rossi was on. A
Yeah, I
satellite
didn't
bike.
think about that because I guess who was running the Repsol colors that year in 2001.
I don't
Was
know.
it? I think he was up against Alex Barros that year in the factory. I have to go back and look. You might be right, Speed. I think I went back one too far, but yeah, it's pretty rare, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, which would make it even cooler if he did win.
Who? Martin?
Yeah, Martin.
Absolutely.
Would be cool, but it's going to be a huge uphill battle for him. But if he does pull it off, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, especially to go out on that note before going to Aprilia. And we haven't talked about him going to Aprilia at all. And I think that going to Aprilia is awesome for Martin. I think that he's going to, and I also think that Aprilia does a great
it might
job.
hold him back a little. I don't know. He's on the best bike.
Yeah, but I mean, if you want to leave a Ducati, you got to leave the best bike. So there's no other option. It doesn't matter who you go to.
I'm excited that he's going to Aprilia because he's one of the top talents, and now we got him on a different manufacturer.
Totally
so
agree.
it spices things up, I feel like.
It's great for the competition.
Yeah.
It's great
And
for the
Aprilia is going to treat him awesome.
Yeah.
And he hasn't really felt like the top dog this entire
Ever.
time.
Yeah.
And at Aprilia, they are absolutely going to give him the all. And I think he's going to shine under that.
I was looking at riding styles, and if you look at the factory Ducati team next year, Bez and Pecco are kind of similar. And then if you look at Martin and Marc Marquez, they're kind of similar. It's both going to be head-to-head on the Italian machinery with kind of similar type styles against each other. So I'm pretty stoked on that one.
Yeah, I think seeing what Martin's lap times will be at the end of the year when the regular Aprilia guys hop off and he gets to test the bike as good as it's going to be at the end of the season, what his lap times will be right then. Because as you guys know, the bike's changed so much year to year now. Wouldn't have a fair comparison just going off his 2025 test times on the new machine.
No, but you can say that there are so many Ducatis that are out there, and Martin is leading all of them. So it reminds me of a Moto 2 situation where everybody's pretty much on the same bike, and so your riding skill is what really shines. And Martin is really shining with everyone else being on a similar bike. Well, so many people being on a similar bike.
I still feel like it's pretty tight, though. Not a huge gap quite yet.
But what do you mean between who? Like him
The
and
top
Pecco?
four
The top
guys.
four guys, yeah.
It's still pretty tight.
Between
Well-
he and Pecco for sure. Yeah, it's a tight race. Like I said, wouldn't want to actually put hard money on either one of them at this point in time.
Yeah. I mean, what's the point spread? It's 71, it's like 18 points between the two of them.
Yeah, so a single race could shift it.
Oh, one weekend away from disaster. Anyone?
Yep.
Yeah, well, Pecco's probably going to have to pick up his sprint game, and Martin would have to fluff a few of the races in order to catch up. But, you know, he's pretty consistent with the sprints, and that's where Pecco struggles the most.
Yeah. Martin's a sprint. He's a sprint master.
You remember towards the end of the last season, though, when Martin just fell apart out of nowhere? So I'm wondering if Ducati's going to sabotage his bike or something. Like, what's going to happen?
Ducati's are going to sabotage.
Well, we don't know now because now he's leaving.
Yeah.
So it's even more significant. He's leading and he's leaving. So
Yeah.
if they ever did anything then, they're certainly going to do something.
I feel like if something happens to Martin now, Ducati's clearly in the loop on like flipping switches
You
or
know
something.
what could happen
Do-
is that
do
guy
you
who's
gentlemen-
behind him in standings runs into the back of him.
Do you gentlemen really think that Gigi's going to give him the latest new toy?
No, not
I
anymore.
don't think so. I think I think last year they were talking about how they want to treat everybody the same, but it would still not be good for Ducati for the satellite team to win. So they were already giving off indications that they don't want that to happen.
Yep.
And I imagine now, so it's going to be even more.
know. I feel like that's a conspiracy theory. I think they'll give him his shot, and
Those are just conspiracy theories. They're just waiting to become true. we know how shady Ducati can be. Obviously, screwing him in the back the way they have
Everybody's
already.
trying to win.
Yeah, you're not trying to cheat. You're not trying to win.
well, speaking of who could mess it up for him, what about that guy who's sitting in third place in the standing? Marc Marquez.
Who?
Yeah, who? What is that guy?
Oh, we all know who
Is that
he
old
is.
man still racing?
Whole world knows who he is.
The old timer. What's he doing back there with 136 points?
I don't know, but I'll tell you, it's pretty remarkable to go from being so down last season to factory Ducati within 7 races. That's wild. No matter how you slice it, that's wild. Obviously, I'm a Marquez fan. I'm biased, but still, that's wild.
You think it happened because of his merit or his sponsors?
There's no question it happened because of his. Well, certainly his sponsors have a factor, but if he wasn't doing good, no one's going to care. They're not going to move him up if he's got a bunch of sponsors, but he's losing. He's fighting and he's getting up there, and they're looking at him going like, oh man, if he continues this progression, he's going to be at the top.
I feel like what
There's one reason and one reason only that he's getting that factory bike.
Tell me, Mackie, tell me.
That's because Gigi has looked at his data and what he's doing on the brakes. What he's doing on the brakes, none of the other guys are doing. The problem he had on the brakes at Coda, the problems he's been having on the brakes, is he's brought his hard braking style from Honda over, and I think they are fascinated with how fast he can go riding differently than all the other Ducati riders, because I don't think he's riding it the same as those guys. He's still figuring out some of the longevity skills, keeping the tire and being there at the end. But yeah, I think that's why he's there. Gigi, that and the marketing. They want to go sell Ducatis, right? I forget what the numbers were. I read it, but just hiring him, they're going to sell a lot of street bikes. So
yeah, which is kind of odd to me because I always figured that there'd be some animosity there, especially for Ducati fans. So I couldn't believe that they would sign Marquez as the better marketing tool. But I don't know. I guess so.
Yeah, but you're right on the point there. The data alone shows it, and you don't even have to look at the papers. You can see while he's racing how he just closes the gap mid corner on everybody. Like it's like his abilities are. He's extremely talented guy, but
he's going to drive the development in a different direction. Pecco's going to hate his guts.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard when he was Danny's teammate, he would purposefully pick harder parts to ride the bike.
He's not a team player.
If it made Danny trip up.
Right.
Yeah.
He is not a team player. He is in it for himself. No two ways about it. And that's how he's going to be with Ducati too. That's not going to change.
And clearly that's exactly how Ducati is because they chose him over Martin.
Yeah, really.
He's not Italian though. I think
reprehensible
they'll still keep
decision though.
Pecco's. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but doesn't it also seem, even if Marquez wasn't part of the conversation, like they just haven't wanted Martin. They just have not wanted Martin. He's done really good. He was doing better than Bastianini, but it just has always had this feel to me like regardless of Marquez, for some reason Ducati does not want Martin. And this just gave him an excuse.
But they were going to hire him. I mean, without Marquez in the picture, he's the shoe-in. Beastie's out. I mean, I think that was a foregone conclusion until Marc's performances.
Well, Parmac also didn't want Marc there. Parmac did not want Marc. They did not want Marc on a 2025
and he didn't
Ducati
want to
in that
be
team.
on theirs either.
So there's no way to keep all of them, especially when Marc's saying, well, I'm not going to Parmac. Parmac doesn't want him.
It's because they're going to Yamaha.
I hope they do. I
also heard that if he didn't get red, he was going to go to another factory. So gosh knows who was actually talking to him about that. But
KTM showed that they are interested.
What ripple effects he has put on the silly season.
Silly season for sure. I wanted to see a chart showing all of the riders switching back and forth between the different teams because this season has been unbelievable with the shifts.
Yeah.
I mean, from the people fleeing Ducati, I think it was you, Mackie, that had mentioned that. Somebody mentioned that all the riders that are basically fleeing Ducati now.
Yeah, because they signed Marc.
They can't shine.
Yeah, well, I don't. It's not just that, but you want to go be the top dog and a factory guy and lead the development elsewhere. And these things always come in swings. I think if Pramac does go Yamaha, we will start to see a shift. And I don't want to get off topic speed until we get to Fabio, but yeah, what they are effort-wise putting in this concession testing is pretty impressive.
Agree. Totally agree. I'm a Honda fan and utterly disappointed with everything that Honda does. Every step of the way, I'm disappointed with the moves that Honda makes. But Yamaha, I'm cheering them on, going, man, you guys are definitely, you can see the heart in it. You can see that they want to do it. Yeah. Which is just awesome.
Yeah, I feel Yamaha is trying harder than everybody right now. Like,
Yeah,
they are putting
it
in
feels
so
like
much,
they are.
Yeah, which we'll get there when we get there. But
What do you think? How you think Enea's doing? I feel like he's putting in work right now.
he should have kept the seat. That's what gets me nuts. Like,
You think he should have kept the factory seat
if
over
Ducati,
Martin?
if
Over
Ducati was smart, they would have kept Enea.
over Martin?
Yep.
I want to put my bet down
and
now that
I
he's not
agree.
going to do anything.
And I agree, because history has shown again, every time you piss off your number one rider by bringing in the guy he's been competing against on another factory, that is just a bad move. I mean, I guarantee that
Bad for morale.
Pecco's being cool in public, but I guarantee he's seething about all of this. Look at Rossi when they brought in Lorenzo. Look at Eddie Lawson never taught. I hate to go back so far, but I was thinking about that today. Lawson, I don't think ever spoke to Giacomo Agostini again once he lied to him about money from the factory contract. He split and went over to Honda, joined the enemy camp. You know, when you try to bring in that super team with guys that have been competing on different factories, it can explode in your face, as I hope it does in Ducatis.
Yeah, they should have kept Enea. I think Enea's obviously one of my favorite, wearing a shirt, but the dude is like, look what he just did in the last race. Please give him time. Like, the guy is so fast.
His
And
late pace is second to none.
I'm down to wait and see, but if I were putting money, he is not going to be.
I got money.
Gonna be in the top.
I got money
don't
with you.
think
He's
so?
going to beat Mark at the end of the year.
Do we?
Yeah, we have $100 bet, man. I'm be cashing up soon.
I feel good about that, man. I feel good about that.
Really? I do think he will finish ahead of Mark. By the
Yeah,
end
both
the
of you
season.
guys think that. What are you thinking, Tim? Where do you think Bastianini is compared to somebody like Martin?
Hard to say with that shoulder injury, right? Again, you know, Martin had that big injury, then 2 solid, pretty much injury-free years. You need a couple of years sometimes on these machines. Who knows? I think Pecco is a little bit better. If you're not starting fast these days, you're not in the game. And it reminds me of an old saying, hey, if a guy's fast but crashes a lot, maybe we can get him to stop crashing. But, you know, you can't make a slow guy fast. So that was always kind of the motto. I think same thing here. It kind of applies, right?
I mean, he has really great late pace. I don't know what's
If
going
you
on. in the
cannot
beginning.
start
No.
fast, if you can't start fast, you're killing yourself. Look what Maverick does again. You have to start quickly. Like the guys that come into the sport, all the legends were fast immediately. Kevin Schwantz lit the world on fire. Acosta lit the world on fire. Marquez lit the world on fire. Rossi lit the world on fire.
Yeah,
If
there's
you're
no
not
real slow
if you're not able to
runners.
get on that bike and go Casey Stoner, Marc Marquez first lap and really start pulling out some lap times, you've got a serious disadvantage in this atmosphere with the aero and everything we got going on with tire pressures today.
And
you
not a
think
lot of
he's-
time to figure it out.
he's destined to be the next Danny Pedrosa. You think?
It's funny you say all that, but I think Enea is faster than everybody. He consistently puts
You're
in
biased.
he consistently puts in the fastest laps of the races
At the
all
end
the
of the
time.
races.
Not
No.
even throughout the entire race. The fastest laps, like he's grabbing most of them during the race. So
He
it
ain't
shows
getting that checkered flag.
yeah, it's because he's not
What's
first few laps or
his
something
what's his
happens, or-
average be interesting to look at his average qualifying position.
Yeah, that I don't know, but I am biased, so I'm going to admit. But I feel like he's so talented, and nobody gave him enough time, and he's coming back from an awful injury.
You know what? If we didn't have sprint races, I think he'd be a lot better off than where he is right now.
Because the late pace
Yeah,
would
because
show more.
It's just a different race. I mean, before we had one format, one race, one structure, and that showed everyone's ability in 26 laps. Now we have a sprint and a distance race. So it's just a different structure. When you don't have to worry about tires, you're getting points for a different speed, a different.
It's
sense
not
of
just
speed.
a different structure of the race either. They're different bikes. I remember looking at the Sprint tank seat configuration. It's a smaller tank. They have a lot different power and mapping because of the fuel consumption. It's just a slightly different bike. So I can't imagine what it's like all weekend working with your GP Sunday machine. Then you got to quickly to adjust to this slightly different Saturday machine. I think that can put a lot of riders off, perhaps.
I mean, look, he took out he even said at the end of the race, I had to push harder, so I passed Martin and Mark. So it's like,
Yeah, he could do it when he needed to.
He's conserving his tires.
Yeah.
And he knows how to run that race. Does he know how to go all out on 12 laps? Maybe. I mean, we haven't seen it.
I think I'm just happy he's going to KTM, honestly, because he's going to be on a factory bike. I think KTM the next year is going to be a very competitive machine.
Well, they have the dream team.
I think at some point it's going to be Pedro and Enea as the factory KTM team. But
Well, what's interesting is Pitt has guaranteed that the person who starts to lead in the points is going to get the special parts first. So they're all going to start the season in 2025 with an even playing field. And that was one of the things that attracted Maverick that I read about in particular, just him in particular.
Is there nothing in the rules that say they could do that? I mean, it's basically like you have four factory bikes at that point.
No, I don't think so. They're going to be in slightly different colors. They're just dropping the gas. It's still a satellite team. No, I don't think it's...
And I'm sure they're free to send those parts wherever they want.
Yeah.
They could say that they're doing it for testing. They could
No,
come
you're
with
a
any
traditional
rationale.
satellite team.
I don't think there's any rules that state you cannot supply factory bikes to your satellite teams.
I saw something that mentioned Pitt Buyer since he has joined KTM. Their almost rocket success that's gone up in Moto GP. Do you have any opinions on him, Tim?
He's an amazing guy, and I agree. I think he's doing well over there. KTM has come to win or dominate every category they've ever entered. It's one of the reasons they held engines back from Kenny Roberts back in the day after promising them to him, and he ended up having to get the Honda V5s. But they're fully committed. They're not going to stop until they win this world title. They're going to keep pouring money at it, and they've got enough to keep pouring at it.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're a team I want to see do it, right? Anyone but Ducati at this point for me. It's funny how that goes. I was a huge fan of Gigi, but again, Ducati's decision-making and policies, and it feels like I want their reign to end, even though it hasn't been that long, and they waited an awful long time to get here.
I was thinking the same exact thing when you were
That's
talking
how
about
fast I've soured on Team Ducati right now.
Yeah,
okay?
they've struggled for so long and only had success for such a short period of time. But that's kind of the general consensus of everybody we're tired.
But the problem with their success is just massive. Like they just swamped the field. At least when Honda and Yamaha and all of them were fighting, like it was close and everything. Now Ducati's just crushing it. Like
with 8 bikes.
I think it's the 8 bikes that's the key, and sharing all that
that's exactly
data.
what it is. That's exactly what it is. And the innovation and the aero and pushing their engine, they've always had enough power to really push more aero than the other guys. But Yamaha's found that out, right? To run this new Super IndyCar aero, I mean, they just need so much horsepower to overcome the drag at high speeds with that stuff.
Yeah, but KTM, I really feel like within the next year, especially next year when the Pedro's up there, like they're going to be making some massive steps. And I still think Ducati's got the advantage for the next couple years, but I think, especially with Aprilia now, with Martin going in there.
They're getting closer, though.
Yeah.
They're definitely getting within the same kind of ballpark. You're seeing Aprilia take a race here or there. KTM this season has not really been up at the top. Acosta's been the most best performing rider for KTM, but they have not done as well, I'd say, this year as they did last year.
Well, keep in mind, they still go at it very differently. If I'm not mistaken, they're still running carbon fiber frames, correct?
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
So they have a slightly different approach, and you're always going to see some differences when different technologies are applied like that. But good to see. Always want to see anybody break that mold of clonism, right? Just the same bikes on the grid.
Yep.
Yeah, the
Totally
KTM's
agree.
actually the fastest bike on the grid right now. It just doesn't have the turning
Yeah,
ability
on the
yet.
straights, when they're showing them, they'll pull out from behind the slipstream and still gain. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, would definitely like to see KTM back. I'm surprised. I thought they would have been doing better this season.
Well, everybody's made a step this season. Everybody has, even the Ducati's faster. So everybody's making a step.
Well,
it's just hard to see.
except for Honda.
Yeah.
Honda hasn't made any progress.
Because they're still sponsoring Taka. He's holding them back.
Yeah, and whether or not he's going to be able to get a handle on that and actually be competitive for the season. My prediction on that is not. I don't think he's going to make a showing. I had hopes that 1 year before they moved him up to factory, he looked like he was doing really good. But as soon as he got to factory, I know he had that wreck, and you got to give him something for that. But it seems like he has just not been able to find his footing. And I don't know if it's because at the time he thought he was going to come in and just womp on Pecco. And so when he realized he wasn't going to, it kind of messed with his mental game. But whatever it is, it does not seem to be the same Bastianini that it was, the up-and-coming Bastianini that we saw before. Now it seems like a guy that's just kind of holding on.
What's a different bike? Again, they changed quite a bit season to season now. I think Pecco was struggling with this bike. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he went back to the non-carbon wrapped forks again. Went back to something he was comfortable with to sort out some of his woes. I think that's why he's more competitive with Martin again.
Well, and that may be true, but all things considered, he's still not up at the top. And that's all I'm basically banking it off of is you're looking at Martin with the same reality. He went from the 23 or the 22 to the 23, and he seems to be really hitting it home. And I just don't know that Bastianini has that. I think he's still great. I just don't think he has that level.
Well, I think Martin's only there because he's crushing it on the sprint races. So if you take the sprint races out of the equation, I think Anea would be leading him right now.
But you can't.
Yeah.
They are in the equation.
But it's like if you're
And if
factoring
you gave him a
skill,
faster bike.
he's still got the skill.
I
he's
think
right there.
Pedro Acosta will win a sprint before Aeneas wins a sprint.
Yeah, it's interesting that guys like Jack Miller don't do well. The guys that usually burn the tire up. You think they would be doing better well in the sprints, but it just seems to always be the usual suspects, right?
I know that's jumping a little ahead, but I've been disappointed with Miller at KTM. I really thought, he had so much charisma. He had so much presence on the track. Even if he wasn't winning, you still wanted to see what he was doing. That guy has fallen off a cliff to where you don't hear his name mentioned hardly at all.
I think Acosta was a wet blanket for him. I mean, a 19-year-old kid comes into the game.
But it was true last year.
Nah,
Same machinery.
getting married.
He's performing. Oh, you think getting married?
I bet you're right. He goes on and on about his family life and his ranch. Like, I think that's what he's eyeing the whole time. He's
to
out
me,
at the
that
track.
was the big distraction from his wedding. It's all kind of pivoted. To me, that was kind of the marker in the ground where things really started turning for him. But hey, you saw who he signed with today, right? Or yesterday?
Did he sign back with Ducati? I know there was rumors about it.
He's taking Marquez's bike at Grassini.
Wow. So he's staying.
I'd say that's very lucky for Miller to get that spot. Very lucky. And if he does not do well on that Grassini bike, then it's more than obvious he's done.
1 year or 2 year
He's
contract.
teamed with Alex Marquez, so I think he's going to have a little easier time of it over there.
Yeah,
All he has to do is outshine Alex, right? Your first guy, you got to beat your teammate.
Which I think he should do.
Yeah. I mean, he's been on the Ducati before, so he kind of knows what to expect.
And done decent on the Ducati. So
Miller can still win races. I wouldn't count him out. Sometimes people just have a rough time, and everyone's at the top of their game in this sport. So if you're not there, then you're going to miss out real quick.
people do have a rough time, but I would say the guys that do really well don't have a rough time for very long. They're very consistent, just like you could look at Pedro and say, okay, he may not be winning, but he is still consistently moving up. He is on an upward trajectory. Somebody like Miller and even Bastianini, from my perspective, they have somehow kind of just squandered and are down in this area and don't show those consistent signs of moving up.
And Naya's had those few pokes of...
Just recently he has. Yeah, you're absolutely. And if it continues, then I will change my tune because he has had a few that look like he's starting to shoot up.
He is fourth in the standings, or is Miller's 16th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, let's not forget that. But it would be nice to see Miller get a bit of his mojo and character back. I think he's good for the sport at this point in time, and nice to see him land over there.
Yeah, he was. I mean, doing stoppies or towing people, there was always some reason to be watching what he was doing, even if he wasn't winning. But now he's not winning nowhere.
Yep.
So what do you guys think of Acosta, the rookie sensation? Is he going to break any young man records, or you think he's just going to just be there?
I don't know if he's going to, but boy, is he special. I think I was reading Paul Espargaro was looking at his data, and he's doing Valentino-esque stuff on brake to throttle transition, like keeping the throttle 20% open while engaging the brakes. And I guess Paul tried it and nearly killed himself at turn 1. So yeah, he's got a big upper body, which he uses, I think, to turn the bike. He's real special. Be interesting to see him on a Ducati, wouldn't it? But that's another story. But yeah, I think he's obviously an up-and-coming star. I have my doubts that he's going to break Marquez's record, get that win before the summer break, I guess, if it is the summer break. So, but yeah, look what he's doing on that bike. It's just incredible what he's doing.
Yeah, that Pedro is absolutely probably going to be one of the greatest GP riders of all time. We're going to be sitting here talking 10 years down the road and be like, man, this guy's still out here crushing it. I think he's the next champion. So, I mean, I called Pecco, remember 5 years back, whatever. I even told you, I'm like, that's the next GP champion right there. Now I'm making my next call. It's going to be Pedro Acosta.
I can back the Acosta. That guy is a blast to watch. I don't notice the different styles as much other than somebody like Binder. I see how he slides out the tire a lot when he's riding, and certainly Martin gets really low compared to a lot of riders. But Acosta is one of those that really stands out with his riding style. He seems to, his neck always seems like it's way extended out when he's riding. You can see him among a bunch of riders and know which one he is because he just seems so far out there. And I guess that's that upper body like you were talking about, Tim. It's really distinct.
That positioning allows him to keep the power on more. If you don't have that positioning where you're pulling the G-forces against the tires that way, you can't get on the power as much as he is. That's why he's so fast.
I mean, I think he's a great rider. I think the only thing that's holding him back is the bike.
The KTM.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
I think he's adapted to that bike in Moto GP faster than Marquez is adapted to the Ducati. I think he was putting in better performances out of the bag this year, right out of the gate.
He's been fighting Mark, and Mark's on a championship bike.
Come on,
and he's on a hand-me-down KTM. The dude's so good.
All the other KTMs.
If you look at all the stats about Acosta, he's 5th right now, but he's insane on what he's doing. I'm super excited to see what he's going to start doing here in the future.
Yeah, he's awesome for MotoGP.
Yeah.
5th
absolutely.
by 1 point.
Yeah.
1 point separates him and our 6th rider.
Yeah.
Our most inconsistent rider, of course, Maverick Vinales.
I love Mav, Tim. It's all good. He's just frustrating.
He did get a win, though, right? I mean, who else got a win that's not on a Ducati?
Even I was scratching my head a little bit with this Aprilia thing, but I came back to thinking about that Lawson thing. And, some guys are just like that. If they don't feel, it's like Martin. The second he found out about Marquez, he pissed off, stomped over to Aprilia and did it. I think there was a bit of that with Maverick. I don't know exactly what Rivoli was telling him, but you have to remember his history with KTM. He gave his MotoGP world title medal to them because of a loyalty thing at the end of the season, promising him equal parts, and it's kind of the same thing he's got going here. So there's always that kind of a homecoming thing. You get to a point in your career, you realize you're probably not going to win that world championship. Not everybody does. It's 22 guys go in, only one comes out with it every year. So, the stars need to align to be a world champion anyway. It's never been just about raw talent. So I think he's looking at maybe trying to get that win on another brand and some other odd motivations. I know he was looking at money as well. So who knows?
You think KTM is paying him more than Aprilia was?
I don't know. It's a head scratcher. I know Aprilia.
I don't know where those two rank.
I don't think so.
I know Aprilia doesn't have a lot of money to toss around because wasn't it they couldn't even come close to matching Yamaha's offer to Fabio?
Well, Yamaha's, I'd say, in a different category, though. Just like Honda. Honda may be losing, but they got bukus of bucks.
Yeah. I'm going to give
But
Mav
yeah,
some credit, though.
I think there was a bit of that over there. It'll be interesting to see how he does next year. I wouldn't go to any team that had Acosta on it.
Yeah. I'm going to give Mav credit, though, because he sees things before they happen. And he was giving Yamaha tons of crap about their ability to progress and how they're testing and building. And
When
perhaps
Fabio was doing good.
well, I'm just saying, like, Mav knows when things are not going to go downhill.
He saw the writing on the wall.
He'll see it coming. So thinking about the past, like how he did things. Like he saw Suzuki, he saw Yamaha was getting better. He jumped onto Yamaha. Now he's at Aprilia.
Suzuki
Now he sees.
kept doing good even
maybe
after
he
he
was-
left.
I think Mav knows what's going on, and he knows that KTM is going to be a better bike next year, and he wants to be on the most competitive machinery. So
And he won his world title with KTM, his Moto3 championship. And you got to think of it this way. Maybe Aprilia just wasn't showing him the love, slapping him on the back, going, hey, you're the new El Capitano. Come on up here. You know, I think you never know what was going on, that whether they were shopping hard for a very competitive teammate. And boy, did they get one. So who knows what the motivation there is. Going to be interesting, but
Or maybe the mechanical DNF started getting under his skin from Aprilia.
there's always been the little things like the clutch. He is by far the best Aprilia rider. I mean, look where Raul and Miguel are. It's sad. It's like, oh my gosh.
Those
So,
guys, I
who
don't
knows?
think are fair to compare, though. Those guys,
Yeah, but
I
we'll see.
never expected them to be performing. But
well, you
I
have
will
to compare.
say,
They're on the
Look
same
at
machinery.
Alicia's
No,
Sparta.
they
no,
are.
Oliveira's a race winner. I was expecting him to be much
In the
closer to
rain.
Maverick than he is.
At KTM, yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Obviously,
and
I
that's where
have a
Maverick's
difference of opinion with Maverick. I want to like Maverick. He makes it so freaking hard to like him because he seems to do things where I'm watching Aprilia and I thought, man, you know what? Aprilia is so good at making their riders feel welcome, supported, good, taking care of their mental, everything. Like they totally support their riders. And Maverick seems to be doing good now that he's got a team that bends over backwards to take care of him and say, no, we've got your back. We want you here. We want you to be our captain. We want you to be the main guy. And he walked away from that, a factory position he walked away from to be on a satellite team. And it just blows me away.
With factory bikes and with the promise from KTM that whichever rider comes out of the gate, they are now the number one rider. They've made that public. So
Right,
that's an
because-
interesting dynamic.
That's true, but that's also, I would say, beats home the point that KTM isn't about loyalty. KTM is about performance. That's how Pit Buyer has got them to the point that they are. Not about saying, hey, you may not be doing good, or maybe you're struggling, maybe you're having an off race, but hey, we love you and we're going to take care of you. That's Aprilia. That is not KTM. And Maverick is leaving Aprilia that does do that and going to KTM that's going to say, you put up or shut up. That's it.
Yep, I agree. But I think Maverick wants to be competitive, and I'm willing to bet next year that KTM is going to be crushing on Aprilias, even with Martin on there.
It's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be an interesting move next year.
Yeah, the teams are wild next year. I mean,
You think Maverick's gonna hold a finger to Bender though? I mean, we're all talking about
I
Acosta.
think he could.
I think he
but
can.
I
I
think
think he
Bender's
could.
doing really well.
I'm a big Bender fan.
I
You're
love
a Bender,
Bender.
fan too, but
Bender's
I do
friggin'
think
awesome.
that Vinales
I don't
in the
think
right
Vin-
moment could be as competitive as
Bender-
Bender.
I don't
Yeah.
think Vinales on equal machinery as Bender is gonna hold a candle to
I
him.
think
Sorry,
Maverick
Tim,
is
I
right
just-
there with
I don't-
Bender.
You
But
think
he ain't.
so?
But he ain't gonna be Acosta.
He's not going to beat Acosta.
Hard
I think
to
Bender
say.
will come
Maverick's
out
got
front.
far more wins than Bender. What, 10? So
But we're on different bikes. When we're on the same machinery,
on lots of different machinery too. So,
Nah, I
but
think
we'll find out next year. But I think more importantly is how is Aprilia going to do the rest of this year? Or is he going to get another win? Because so far this season, he's the only guy to beat Ducati.
Do you think that it's going to mess with his mental state now? I mean, I feel like I'm hoping that he can still be positive with Aprilia, but the way I view Maverick is that he's going to start building up that wall between him and Aprilia right now and making it contentious. Like he's not
gonna
No,
going to be working
I don't
with
think
him.
so.
he's
I
going to
don't
start
think
rev
so.
bombing the bike?
I don't think so. I think we're going
coming
to
up
see him
some
at
tracks he
Assen.
likes. Yeah, like
I think we're going to see him at Assen very strong. One of the
And
strengths of the
Silverstone.
Aprilia right now is the high speed corners. They have a stability edge with their aero right now over everybody in that regard. So I think Maverick's going to be right back in the thick of it at Assen this weekend.
I think it's going to really boil down to his mental state. And if he can stay positive with everything that's going on, I absolutely think he could be competitive. I think the Aprilia is doing great. And even though they may have some consistency issues, they are definitely starting to perform where they very blatantly have tracks that they excel compared to the Ducatis and everybody else. So I think as long as he can stay happy, then I think he will do good for the rest of this season.
You know what I'm shocked about though is, I've always loved Maverick because back in the day, him and Rossi were on the same team for the longest time, so I always used to cheer for both of them. And I always felt like Maverick would crush everybody with half a tank of gas, and that's where the sprint comes into play. And I would have thought at the beginning of the season that Maverick would have ran away with it because he would have been half a tank lower. Usually when he has a full tank of gas, it throws him off. But when he gets light and he gets in his groove, he's untouchable.
He can't get off the line though. He needs to get on.
He's
the
getting
street
better
and
about
go
that though.
Traffic light to
he
traffic
is getting
light.
better about that. Right before he
but
switches bikes.
He's still getting eaten alive in the first couple of corners. It just crushes me every time I watch the start of a Grand Prix, and it's like he just gets elbowed around and loses 2, 3, 4 places very, very quickly. And you just can't recover from that in this game today. You can't.
Did he have that issue on other brands, or did that start with the Aprilia?
No,
And
he had
that's
the same
always
thing
happened.
at Yamaha
Yeah, it's
too.
always
Did he
happened.
really?
Yeah, he's always been
Yeah, but I think it's
starter.
it's compounded now with launch devices and aero. Turn 1's become the freaking jungle. It's nuts. You go back and look a few years ago, there's much more harmony going into turn 1 because you weren't worried about smoking your tire pressure through the roof by lap 3. All these guys are guessing before the race whether they're going to be in clean air or not, and they're basing that pressure on that. So if they get the guessing game wrong and you're now mid-pack when you thought you'd be in second or third with a bit cleaner air, throws the whole strategy off. Now you're changing maps, trying to figure out what to do. It is a completely different game with aero and tire pressures. I think more than most casual observers realize.
I think one's got to go. I don't mind the aero, but I think the tire pressure rule is just retarded.
Yeah, I agree. I don't mind the aero. We've had plenty of
It's not
passing
the
this season.
tire pressure rule, Speed. It's the loss of performance when that sucker gets hot. The pressure goes up.
They're still
changes.
regulating it. They're putting you in a little window of what those pressures can be. And I mean, me, you, anybody else who goes to any different tracks, we can all bump our pressure up and down
I get
5
that,
PSI.
but
I mean,
I
that's
think they've opened the window up. I still think it's just problematic with the way the aero is and how much the tires get worked now.
Well,
The
that's
front
up
tire
to,
never used to see that much load.
that's up to Michelin to present the new measurement of what the pounds need to be. So they're just following Michelin's guidelines when it comes to that.
yeah, I don't know. I don't like that rule.
Well, the
So-
reason the rule was put in is because guys were running the pressures much lower than what Michelin thought was safe.
And that should be their risk that they're taking upon themselves, not
Yeah, maybe they can pull more out of that Michelin tire than Michelin realizes.
But again, think about that, gentlemen. All of these guys can go fast and lead the race, but you've got to manage the tire, deal with what position you got into. Are you able to make passes in this particular track with the aero in this configuration? It is such a chess game with so many moving parts now that, again, one of the few things I agree Marc Marquez with, we need to really strip down a lot of these aids and a lot of this aero and get back to where we could pass a little better and put it back a little bit more in the hands of the riders. And interesting topic, I don't know if you guys heard what Espargo had to say about reaching the physical limits racing these bikes. He said he Aleix did not have one more lap in him at Mugello. He said that the upper body demands now are insane. The bikes have changed so much, but riders' arms haven't.
There was actually a few guys that said they had to back off on the last few laps because they're just completely exhausted.
Wow.
Speaking of Aleix is doing pretty well. I mean, if you compare him to Maverick, I know he's stepping away and moving to a Honda test rider position next year. And I think that's great.
Hard to say.
Honestly, that's a
how
good
he's
move.
doing.
It's good that Honda's doing that. He's a great test rider. Look what he did with Suzuki. Look what he did with the Aprilia.
I
He-
can't see
he puts
anybody
together
having a
a
good
good bike.
time that goes to Honda.
Well,
but
he just needs to give him direction, somewhere to push that bike.
Well, he's
into.
going to speak his mind, that's for sure. And you got to hope that Honda listens to that. But like I said when I was talking to you guys, the Japanese, I don't think, are used to dealing with such a hothead like Aleix is. If you've ever watched him come in swearing, throwing stuff, I mean, yelling
Maybe
at
that's
everything.
what they need.
Dude.
Though.
Agreed.
Maybe
If
that's
they
what
can
need.
I hope
themselves.
I hope Aleix walks in there and kicks the door down and tells them
Oh,
how dumb everybody is. And what are you guys doing? Sitting on your hands? Do you not see what's going on out there?
I don't think there's going to be any of that. When you're a test rider, he's just going to come in and go, "This sucks."
Well, I think that's what he's going to say every time. He's just going to go out and be like,
and
this
walk
sucks.
over and sit down in his chair and go, "Yeah, you guys got to fix that. Can I have my cappuccino, please?" I think that's what it's going to be when you're a test rider. That's got to be a
He's
real.
got to be better than Brattle. What's Brattle doing?
Oh, I agree with that. I feel like Brattle's
Who
one of
is
those that
Brattle?
respects the seniority.
Who
and
is
Honda.
Taka?
I think both of those guys. I think the
Taka?
reason
Who's
they keep
Taka?
them around is because they respect the chain of command at Honda.
He's the leading
and so
Honda,
they're
though.
like good employees. They're not voices of contention. They're good employees. Aleix is going to be a voice of contention.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Honda can use all the help they can get. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, agreed.
Next is Gigi. DJ Antonio. Yeah.
I'm a fan of
me,
DG.
Me and you have a bet.
Do we?
Yeah.
Man, I got to keep track of these bets.
I'm betting Bezzecchi finishes the
Ahead?
championship of DG. Yeah, $10 bet
I
on
feel
that.
good about that one. And did you see that Bezzecchi just signed with Aprilia?
Yep.
And I totally thought that should have gone to Digi, but they signed Bezzecchi. So there's a lot of people that feel like
think-
you that think Bezzecchi is a better choice.
I think Bez is the better choice.
He is. He got second in the championship on a GP 22.
And then he went like this.
He's on a
And
different
so-
bike.
So who's going to get his ride over at VR46?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Who's the guy that's
Maybe
in
Luca
Moto
could
2 that
come
the
back.
Ducati already signed?
Fardegar
Aldeguer or something?
Aldeguer,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think he's might.
I thought that same thing. They might give it to him.
Yeah, because
is he an academy rider though?
no, he's a Spanish guy, but
But
I
they
think-
already promised him a spot on
Yeah.
Ducati.
so they have to give him a Ducati.
Oh, and they promised him something for 2027. I was reading the other day. I can't remember what it was, but he's got them on some real stipulations over the next 4 years of what they owe him.
That's wild to call that far out.
Man,
Man,
what?
if you're not like winning every race, I don't know how you have that
That-
kind of a weight.
That's called good management right there. I'll tell
I
you.
guess so.
That's beyond the word good. That's called like God management to get some kind
Yeah.
of stuff like that.
Tim, what's your thoughts on Digi?
I think he's been amazing. Again, you look at a bunch of these guys, and they're all just so talented and so equal. And the way the game is now,
Had you written him off like I had last season?
no, not at all. No, look at him. Look at what he's doing on that yellow bike up front. It's exciting. He's just doing a great job over there. It's hard to shine consistently. You guys tease Mav about it. It's true of a lot of these guys trying to be consistent at every track against the competition that's out there, especially when you're on the non-factory bike, right? It's just tough. But yeah, he deserves his spot. He's proved that. Amazing that he was almost out the door of Moto GP not too long ago, and
Oh,
here
I
he
had totally
is,
written him off.
doing some blazing performances. So
Yeah, the end of last season was awesome to see him rise because I swear he was like a Taka Nakagami to me where I thought, I don't know what that person is still doing in MotoGP. And then a switch flipped and all of a sudden he was up at the front fighting every single race. And he hasn't done as well this season, although he is ahead of Bezzecchi.
Well, they told him he was on the chopping block, and that's what got him motivated. You know what I mean?
So that's what they got to do. They got to tell him, hey,
Maybe
man,
he's
if you
just
don't
one of
do
those
it,
guys
you're
that
gone.
needs that pressure.
I
Like
feel like
Miller.
no,
Miller's always got
that
that.
wasn't that at all. If you interviewed him at the end of that, he said, "Look, they're about to take my toy away when I finally figured it out." I think it just took him that long to come to terms with how to write these things, and now he's kind of arrived a little bit. I think Digi's got a solid future, especially when you start looking at the bottom half of this field. He certainly deserves it more than some of the legacy names that are hanging around down at the bottom.
Well, I mean,
Who are you talking about specifically?
right underneath
I'm
him is
talking about
Alex Marquez. I don't think he's
Takagami,
better
man.
than
I
Alex
still
Marquez.
kept-
I'm with you on that. Honda seems to be so stuck in.
He's the top Honda.
No,
Taka
he's
Nakagami's the top Honda.
I'm not giving that guy any credit.
As far as points
I
goes,
like Taka too. I
Hang-
think he's
hang on,
legit,
Speed.
but-
I think
Speed, he should be the top Honda. How long has he been on that thing?
yeah,
He's had how many races to
my
practice?
bad. My bad. Zarco is actually just slightly
Oh,
in front of
what
him.
did I say before the season even started? I said
Zarco is gonna be
Zarco
the
is the
top.
best Honda rider.
Zarco has 9
There you
points
go.
and Taka has 8.
Yeah.
So
By the way, interesting quote from Zarco this week. He said that he thought Marc Marquez would be ripping people's heads off once he got on that Ducati, and it just hasn't been the case. He's saying Pecco is really holding his own against him and continues to. So, and what else did I read? That Ducati realized Marc may only have a 2 to 3 year window of greatness left, or whatever, however you want to coin that. So,
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
only got like
interesting.
another year or two.
But you know what? I think all of this also shows
That's all he
how
needs.
bad Alex Marquez
championships.
is. He's on the same machine as his brother, and he is nowhere to be found.
Well, you could
Oh,
say
yeah.
that shows how
Team,
bad
same
Alex is,
machine.
but it could also show how good Mark is.
I
Does
think it's
it,
the
though?
latter.
'Cause-
Honestly, it's the latter. But
DG's ahead of Alex Marquez on the VR46 Ducati.
Yeah.
true.
So
But I don't think Mark's going to have as easy time as he thinks getting on the same bike as Pecco. Again, he's becoming, a little longer in the tooth. I don't think he's as fast as he was. I don't think he's lighting the world on fire. Right now, Martin and Pecco are keeping him at bay pretty well. So the same people that said wait till he gets on a Ducati are now going wait till he gets on a 24. And I'm waiting.
I'm not saying that. I think he's going to end up being. I think he'll fight for the championship this season. I think as the races go on. I mean, you're talking about a guy that in the beginning crashed a couple of times when he first figured out how to get the lead. Now he's not crashing, whereas on the Honda he would have been crashed at this point. Who knows how many times? I think he's clearly making leaps and bounds forward. I think at this rate, you're going to see in the next couple of races a major change.
I don't think Mark is going to make a huge improvement. I think he's very quick at what he does, and he picks up quickly. He finds the limits quickly, but I don't think he's got anything else left in the gas tank to improve on. And I
No,
think,
and he's got some more crashing to do too. It's Marc Marquez.
yeah. So I don't think
That's
he's
what
gonna,
I was telling him earlier. As long as he doesn't crash, that's always every race I watch. I'm
that's-
like, just
that's-
don't think about crashing. Don't think about crashing.
That's going to be his next phase, though, because he's going to try to go faster.
right.
And-
Yeah. Now that he's actually trying to push
Yes.
the limit. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So I
That's going to
don't-
be what it boils down to.
And I don't see
What?
him winning the championship.
do you guys think
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if he can get any assistance through the Grassini team to adjust to how he breaks that bike. If I'm sure Gigi's already thinking about what to do on the front end to help him utilize that aspect of
accommodate.
his riding better. Yeah.
that's going to
So-
throw
I,
off? That's
I
gonna
think
throw off the
Rossini
other
will do
ducks.
whatever they can to help because this is their best chance to get as much spotlight time as they possibly can. So while they've got Marquez there and he's making all of these, waves, they need to ride that as much as they can because next year they're going to be back to being third down on the Ducati list.
Well,
And
they'll be with Miller. And
I wouldn't
Alex.
count out Miller. Miller can still win races. I think he's just having a bad year. But Miller's still really good.
I don't see it. I've looked at Miller lately,
neither.
and yeah, I don't see him winning races anytime soon.
I'm not counting him out.
You know who's going
Binder.
to do
Binder.
good? I think
Brad
Rins
Binder
is
can't
gonna
win a
do
race.
good. I think
You don't think
Rins
Binder's
is gonna
gonna win a
make
race?
Fabio.
He hasn't. I'm just saying. Even Brad Binder's struggling really hard right now.
Yeah, he is. I don't know if that's because of being matched with Acosta and seeing somebody that's coming up so strong on the same bike, but I'm hoping that Binder gets his swagger back. And,
You know what's
and starts
happening to the
getting up there.
KTM boys? They're all looking at Acosta's data and trying to do what he's doing.
replicate it?
Yeah. Because before they saw his stuff, they were crushing people. They were fantastic. It was KTM 1 and 2 top. Getting it at Jerez last year was amazing. Now they're looking at Acosta's data and they're like, wait a second. We get a little bit faster if we do this or.
Yeah.
So I
instead
feel like-
of focusing on their own
Exactly.
trajectory.
So they're trying to mimic another style that is pure raw talent.
And you can't. The difference here is we all have different bodies. Some of us have shorter torsos, longer legs. We are not equal in that department. And I think, I'm a 6 foot tall rider with long legs. I've always felt certain advantages in certain area. I got a big wingspan. I can put serious leverage on the handlebars. But there are disadvantages, like you say, how Acosta rides. You can look at a guy's data and do nothing about emulating it because you are just physically different from him.
Now,
agree
on
with
that
that.
same point, I would like to mention in the press conference that I think was 2 races ago, they have been hammering Martin, Pecco, and Marquez, each of them, because they're on same basic bikes. What are you doing different? And it's been fascinating to hear each one of them. Martin's like, I look at all of their data. Marquez is like, I look at all their data. And all of them are trying to pull every little bit they can. And they are genuinely adapting. So while some riders, and not to bring back Vinales, but Vinales, in my mind, is notorious for saying they need to adapt the bike to my style. And right now in the Ducatis, all 3 of those guys are actively trying to adapt their styles from each other to the bike in order to squeeze the most that they can out of it. And I think your ability to adapt to a bike is probably one of the best assets you could have.
Yeah, that's where your
I
talent
would
comes
agree.
in.
And I think some of the other problem is Aprilia doesn't have as much data information from as many top guys, right? Obviously. And Espargaro, long in the tooth with a very different riding style than Maverick. So, once they have Bastianini and Martin over there, 2 young, extremely fast guys, I think they might start getting better correlation between each rider's data and doing a little bit better job. Be interesting
Bezzecchi?
yeah, excuse me, Bezzecchi, if I misspoke. But it'd be interesting to see the 24 models triple down to the Trackhouse team as well soon. So, I mean, Aprilia's only got Alessia Spargaro and Maverick's data to really ponder over on these 2 bikes. So it's got to be very limiting because they're very different riders.
KTM's going to be with a fantastic data next year with their rider lineup.
Oh, yeah,
is
agree.
super
Agree.
stacked.
Well, I know that winter testing is going to be good.
Oh man,
I'm not necessarily an Aprilia
Maverick's going to
fan,
be cranking out some
but I
hot
do
laps.
think it's impressive how well Aprilia does with so little.
yeah.
There's so little budget, so little bikes, so little data. It's amazing to me that they're able to be as competitive as they are.
Absolutely. They're my favorite team. I wish every weekend I'm an Aprilia and a Maverick fan, rooting for them first. And then
You're going to be
anyone-
a KTM fan. You going to be a
and
KTM
then
fan.
and then from there, anyone but Marquez.
You coming to KTM there, Mackie?
Always been a KTM. I was mad at them for the Kenny Roberts engine debacle back in the day, 20 plus years ago. But
And you're still mad.
absolutely.
If I know you, you're still mad.
Well, they left him high and dry. In fact, I got to speak to Kenny Roberts about it at COTA this year. He talked to me about the whole room full of engines, and it was Honda that came in with the RC 211V motor, the V5 for him that saved them in the end. But I'm over that. I do want KTM to win. I'm a huge Bender fan, huge Acosta fan, huge Miller fan. I mean, what's not to like the orange team over there? First they were doing it with chromoly frames. Now they're doing it with carbon fiber. They march to their own drum. They're kind of
you gotta love that.
yeah. So absolutely want to see KTM on top and crushing it with Maverick next year.
We haven't really talked about Yamaha. What do you guys think about? I know there's only 2 of them, but there's Fabio and Rins out there. And I think
I'm a fan of both of those riders.
I am too, and I think Rins is stepping up his game. I think
Rins has had a horrific injury, and I don't think enough attention's been paid to that.
He still can't walk. He's still
Yeah, I've
limping.
had corrective surgery on a bad tib fib, and it's a nightmare.
That's what my concern is with Rins too. When they were at COTA, we saw him when he was walking back to his trailer, and he had somebody
he's
with
limping.
him, and he was limping hard. And I thought, man, no matter what, that's got to be holding you back some. And it's been quite a while, so I don't know if that's going to really work itself out or be something that doesn't hold.
As
you back
long
in
as
the
they've
future.
kept the mobility in the ankle, because I lost mobility in the ankle, and that really affected my riding on my right ankle. It just does not move like the other one. You have to make adjustments. So I'd hate to think that he's having to make those adjustments at this point in his career. I hope his legs get sorted out. Last I read, he was super happy about the private test they just had. I think he's in deep contract talks to stay at Yamaha. So
Yeah,
I wish
think he needs to stay.
nothing but the best for Alex Rins. Just a phenomenal rider.
Me too, and a great guy. He's always enjoyable, always positive. And Fabio, huge fan of Fabio. I know you are too. And whenever they ask him, he keeps saying that it wasn't just about the money, that he really has. And I think we can all see it.
We
too.
can see
we
it.
Can see
Like,
the
They,
things that
yeah, they
Yamaha's
convinced
doing.
him. They convinced him, and they're delivering on what they convinced him about.
Yamaha, I gotta say, like Fabio is absolutely my favorite rider, and I was a little bit distraught when he decided to stay because I wanted him to go to Aprilia.
You wanted him to have a chance.
Yeah, I want him to fight, and I feel like he should be the champion. But now that I'm seeing what Yamaha's been doing the past few months, like I'm excited,
More optimistic.
Yeah, I'm
that
like
there might be
they're gonna
chance.
make a step. It's coming. It may not happen for another year or 2 years.
Right, but they're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, they're gonna make
Oh
it
no,
happen.
he's poking his head in there on the occasional weekend right now and shocking people with performances on that thing. So
Yeah, he got on the podium. Yeah.
hopefully sooner rather than later for Yamaha.
I saw a video just recently when they were doing testing where Lynn Jarvis was all suited up and he was going out on the bikes too. And I thought, man, that's cool as hell.
The Silverstone Monster Energy thing
Yeah,
they put
it's just
together.
cool to see the team leader
Monster
getting
Energy.
suited up and going out on the bikes.
I haven't
was like,
seen
man,
that.
that's
I'd like to
Fabio
see
Quartararo.
that. All right, guys. Well, good talk, man. I think we really touched on a lot of the the riders, a lot of the manufacturers. I can't
a
wait to
wild
see what's going to happen next and what's going to happen the year after that. Anyways, thanks
Cool
for watching
beans.
Between the Apex.